Okay, so for my Facebook people, I'm so sorry that you're not going to be able to see Michael because we can't get it to work. But I hope you can hear him. So let's just do a quick sound check. Michael, do you want to say hi to the Facebook people to see?
Hi everyone, hope you're all having a fantastic day so far despite the COVID.
Could you hear him? Just thumbs up if you could hear Michael on Facebook. But if not, if you are on my Instagram, Nashe's Corner, please just log on to Instagram and you can see him and hear him there as well. And I promise next time we do this live, we'll have sorted out how to do it. Oh, Rebecca said she's tuned into Instagram, so perfect. Okay, so everybody that's on Facebook, if you can tune in to my Instagram, that's the best way to hear and see Michael. So I think we're going to just start and then just take it from there. So thank you so much for joining Nashe's Corner Alive, Michael. So happy you're here. But by way of introduction, for anybody that doesn't know who I am, my name is Nashe. I go by Nashe, which means it with the Lord. So my full name is Nashe, which means trust in the Lord. I am a qualified business and IT consultant, but I work in finance, so I head a finance department which oversees about 400, 500 people within central government looking after Brexit. Yeah, so in my belt, I manage a budget of about 160 million at the moment, so it's really exciting times.
Wow,
Outside of that, I have a consultancy company as well as I am a serial social entrepreneur. So I have a couple of projects that I run to help the community. One of the social enterprises I have is called World Lanterns. So make sure you go and tune into World Lanterns as well. So why are you all here? I just think it's important to understand things from other people's perspective. You know, there's a saying that says your net worth is your net worth. Your network is your net worth, right? So I think it's just really important to understand from industry experts different types of things within life, whether career, business, like whatever the likes are. So I hope that in this season of isolation and social distancing, we can use this to really edify ourselves, and that's what this platform is all about. So you're going to be hearing from amazing people such as Michael today. People that would normally charge you for their services have availed their time to come and speak to you guys for free on Nashe's Corner. So I'm really hooking you up, guys. But anyway, with that reason of introduction, I'm going to pass over to you, Michael, so you can introduce yourself to the people. Tell us, who is Michael Taborade?
Okay, like Nashe said, and hi everyone, my name is Michael Taborade. I'm a British-born Ghanaian, and currently I work for NHSX, which is basically the amalgamation between NHS England and Improvement, which is like the NHS headquarters, and the Department of Health. And what I focus on is implementing digital solutions into the NHS. So, you know, looking at the NHS app or the apps that have been developed because of COVID are heavily due to the team or department that I'm part of as well.
Wow.
I've had 4.5 years within public health. And so again, COVID is something that's very close to home in terms of my experience as well. Now, outside of that, I'm actually a qualified EMCC and ILM registered coach. That's a life coach, executive coach, whatever you want to see it as. And I'm very much heavily involved within the NHS as a 360 healthcare leadership facilitator, as well as an action learning set facilitator as well for graduates coming into the system. And that's something I've just recently got on board with. So that's pretty much me in a nutshell. I've been part of the NHS for the past 10 years. I've been coaching and mentoring for the past 5/6 years as well.
Okay, cool. So there's something that Michael forgot to mention.
Author, yeah, so many things.
So Michael's a man of many talents, and one of the things that he's done is He has written 4 books. You've just recently launched your 4th book, haven't you? So I'm actually holding in my hands one of his books called Understand, Reach and Expand. Can you tell us a bit more about your books?
So yeah, I've written 4 books. So 3 of them are part of this series, Understand, Reach, Expand, which is a huge philosophy that I believe in and something I developed back at the age of 18, 19. And the 4th one is slightly different. And I felt I needed to write it to really get people to understand how they can cultivate and develop their own goals in life, whether it's in a professional setting or whether it's in a personal setting as well. But the story behind those books, the first 3 books, the majority of those books were written on public transport because of some issues that I had with my laptop at the time. And so, you know, many of you will know Google Docs. I did a lot of the writing on there. So yeah, like that's basically the background behind my books.
Do you know what? Already I'm inspired because when I used to get onto the train every morning, the thing that I would do is sleep. But you were out here writing books. Wow. Thank
you. Thank you. You know what? When you have context and when you understand your situation, you know, you just have to have a no matter what it takes mentality, you know. And so at that moment in time, I was like, I really want to write this book. And I don't have a laptop right now, so what other option do I have? I need to write on my phone. Like, it got to a point where my right hand got repetitive strain injury from writing the book, so I started writing with my left hand. It's that serious. The whole story is on my website. But yeah, it's just pure sheer determination. You just have to be on it.
But what kept driving you? Like, I mean, your books and your whole brand and ethos, because you also have a podcast. Like, guys, like, he also has this podcast, which has like about 8,000 followers on Instagram or something like that. What's your podcast? Mindset Mastery, right?
That's correct. Mindset Mastery with an I. So I at the end.
Okay. So your whole ethos, your whole branding, mentoring people, coaching people, writing books, it's all like driven. It sounds like it's all driven from wanting to pour out to others. Like, how did you come to that place where you were like, okay, this is what I need to do to maybe help other people? Or is it a money thing? What is it? Like, what's your driving force?
It's a good question. And I think what started it for me was context and really understanding the situation that I was in, you know, because obviously I've come up from a single, you know, parent family home, still obviously talk to my father. That's an assumption there I've made, but anyway. And with that in mind, I realized, okay, cool. We're all dealt cards in life and I can choose to accept what I have currently right now, or I can try to engineer success the best way that I need to. And at the end of the day, I'm not saying that I'm like tangibly successful now, but I'm successful in the sense of that I stick my line to my values. And so understanding my context doesn't define me. I had to realize that there are other people who are in situations that really feel like their environment or their background is what grounds them in their situation, i.e. they can't move forward to reach a specific goal, or they're not able to start that business or write that book. And I want to prove to them that no, you can use what you have. You can use what you have in order to start engineering and shaping the goals and the successes that you want to achieve. And so I became obsessed around people being resilient, people just doing the impossible, people just really believing in themselves to actually get tangible results, rather than really looking at other people and saying, that can never be me, you know? So I like to see myself as giving practical hope to individuals. As opposed to just saying, just look at me. Don't really care about my accolades in that sense. As long as I can help other people make real tangible results, that makes me happy. That drives me as well.
Amazing. So do you know what? One of my pet peeves is I see a lot of people in this generation that we live in. I mean, as long as you have a mic, as long as you've got a phone, as long as you have an audience, you can automatically be an influencer. And sometimes I see like people, like for example, I've been in consultancy for like almost 10 years, and so when I talk about like the consultancy that I know it comes from like experience. It comes from actually studying and being equipped from these things. Whereas somebody can wake up and say, this is the way to make money, or this is the way that I'm going to gain a following or approval, so I'm going to do this. So what equips you to be able to pour out to other people? I warned you to get a drink at the, because the questions are going to be like fire.
You know what? It's two things. There's two things. Number one, obviously, the experiences that I've had. You can't remove the experiences that you've had in life, whether that is personal experiences or professional experience, especially for me being within the NHS. And there are things that I can relate to people that will enable me to spread my message. And so the question more becomes, how do you organize your thoughts and your experiences in such a way that you can really, you know, sort of invigorate people with the right inspiration? The second thing is, I have had so much training. It's ridiculous. I've had public speaking training. I've had training on different businesses, whether that's property or whether that is writing books, X, Y, and Z. In terms of my professional training, and I'm qualifying with this now, just to be very clear with people, for my coaching and for the ILM and the EMCC accreditations, that's what I'm doing right now. So at the end of this, I could have the equivalent to a master's and or a degree for coaching. Now, a lot of people call themselves coaches, but really and truly, they may not understand the real principles behind coaching. You know, most people understand that there's effective questioning, active listening, X, Y, and Z, but there are certain things you need to do to qualify yourself to be a real, like, actual coach or real actual mentor, you know? So for me, that's how I differentiate myself from the market. Like, have these qualifications in place. I'm using it professionally within industry, and obviously with all of these other assets that I'm building, that creates more credibility as well.
Wow. So, like, I think you touched on a really good point. And then the way you've said it, it sounds as though there's a difference between mentorship and coaching. Like, explore that, because I always hear people saying, oh, I need a coach or I need a mentor, but like, the two things are completely different. So it would be really nice to understand from your perspective, like, what differentiates between mentorship and coaching.
That's a very good question. So before I even answer that, I would say most people are looking for a mentor, but they need a coach. Okay. And so if you look at the differences, a mentor is somebody who is experienced and advises on specific things that they've been trained to deliver on or they've gone through in their life. So that could be a senior manager, that could be, you know, some of these people that you see on Facebook adverts and all that, they're mentors, okay? They kind of direct you, they're directing with their approach. With a coach, they do three main things. Number one, they increase your self-awareness, okay? Number two, they allow you to understand what choices you have in your life. And number three, they allow you to understand that you are solely responsible for what decisions you go out to make. So what a coach does really well is that they have to be trained at asking effective questions, okay, and also have deep listening. And with that deep listening, they need to be trained around psychological concepts and understanding how you communicate in terms of your body language, your tonation, and all of that stuff there. Now, a mentor can do that too, but they can choose to just tell you what to do. And so if you think about the differences, like, a coach can perceive to be a bit more transformational in nature. Not everybody needs a coach. Sometimes people need mentors. Sometimes people don't need a mentor, but they need a coach. So it's understanding where you are in terms of your development and what you really need in terms of the results that you're trying to develop.
Wow. So, you know, one thing that I face as a senior leader is that there's an expectation to mentor the people within my team. Like, do you think like that's a good approach based on the definition that you've just given? Is it a manager's responsibility to coach or mentor their team, or should that be something that is like passed on to somebody else that's a specialist?
That's a very good question. I think in order for you to be a good manager, you need to have both qualities. You need to have both qualities. So, for example, if someone is coming into the organization for the first time,
Yeah.
I don't think they want to hear you asking questions like, so what are your thoughts on X, Y? Like, you have no clue of the organization.
Yeah,
So you need someone who can tell you what to do in that instance. So mentorship is key. However, if you've been in the organization for a while, in order for me to empower you as an individual, there has to be coaching tendencies. And those coaching tendencies have to, well, basically that means you have to have the right level of emotional intelligence to observe your staff and ask the right questions that enable and empower them to make the decisions themselves, obviously aligns to the business goals. So if you don't even give them a chance to do that stuff, you're not giving them the opportunity to develop as potential leaders. You're not even giving them the opportunity to feel like they're being trusted. There's a whole host of different things that you're leaving out on the table if you're not actually putting in coaching skills into your leadership.
Okay, wow. Okay. Do you know what? I'm seeing comments streaming already. Just to let everybody know, there will be an opportunity to ask questions to Michael towards the end. So at the moment, I've got fire things here, but please take the questions, because we're going to have like an opportunity for you to ask some questions as well. I think like the next thing that I was just wondering, because, and people always ask me this, so I'm always interested to hear it from another person's perspective. You're an author, you're a brand owner, you are a mentor, you're a coach, like you're a business owner, you have all these things that you're doing. How do you find, and now there's COVID-19 and all of these things that happen, how do you find time? Like, what do you do, like, to get time to do everything and do it to the best quality? Because the things that you produce out there, like, it's really amazing quality. Yeah, when do you sleep? That's what Daisy said.
So I want to be clear, even though, like, I want to be very clear and transparent. So my 9 to 5 is what pays the bills for me right now. And I get supplemented through coaching clients. Okay. That's how it works. So for me, in my mind, I'm a personal brand looking to be a big business, obviously, in the future. I want to be clear about that, because sometimes we say we're business owners, this and that. But if you're not turning over 86,400, you're getting taxed by the HMRC, then I don't know where you fit in that category in that sense. In terms of time, I'm extremely intentional. And when you understand what your values are, i.e. the things that are important to you, you know exactly what you need to do when you're given the opportunity. By nature, I am an opportunist. So if we look at my typical day, I may, start work at 8 o'clock and then finish at, 5 o'clock or 6 o'clock. Straight afterwards, I eat, then I'm down on the grind. I'm down on the grind, and that grind will include me coaching people virtually. That will include me developing content. That will involve me masterminding with different people. That might involve me sort of like bouncing off ideas with accountability buddies. Like, I don't just do it by myself. I try to create the right sort of people around me in order for me to be as effective as possible, because I can't just look at myself, or look at things myself, should I say, and say, yeah, this is what I need to do. I can only go so far. And so when I hear stuff from other people and then assess what they're saying, then I can say, cool, I definitely need to make a change here. So it's values that really drives what I do in terms of like my productivity, but it's also looking at the inferences of data, either based on what other people are saying or based on what my metrics are saying as well. It needs to be driven that way. Otherwise, I'm just wasting my time, and I'm just doing things based on vanity metrics. Like, what's the point? A lot of us are doing stuff on socials, and we're just doing it to get the likes and XYZ. Is that turning into dollars? No. Some of you guys are on Instagram. You don't even need to be on Instagram. There are other things that you can do, and so I just focus on the things that I think are important.
Yeah. Do you know what you said? Like, you some of the decisions that you make are data driven, and I think that's so powerful, because I always say, if we operated our lives the way we implement things in organizations, like, we would be doing so many effective things. Like, because I never actually thought about data driven, like, my decisions should be data driven, like trend oriented, like what's trending, what's going right, what's going wrong. Like, introspective is so important. So the next thing, like, I was going to ask you is, they say no man is an island, right?
Mm-hmm,
So
mm-hmm.
what sort of support system, and I think people really struggle with this. I as a business owner, it's been something that I have struggled with a lot
Mm-hmm.
in my business, in terms of understanding what my team dynamics should look like. I mean, especially if you build something from scratch, then giving it to somebody else, like handing over delegation, all of those kind of things, or like just general support, because sometimes entrepreneurship and even holding down a 9 to 5 can be so stressful. So what kind of support system have you got, and like how did you get that type of support system? Because I think somebody out there needs to hear that.
Of course, no. Do you know what? And I'll be very honest with you. For the longest time, it was just me by myself, you know, and to a degree, still kind of is. But a lot of the support came from, you know, my missus, also came from my sister. Those two have been like amazing in terms of just the advice and just listening to what I have to say and giving me ideas X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
In terms of the practicals, again, that was a lot of me or me paying for other people to actually help me with that stuff. And only recently now I've started to develop, you know, a team and everything else, a small team, obviously. And obviously there are things down the line that we're looking to deliver. So people are focusing on the project management side of things and the business management side of things and the content side of things and everything else. And I can already see how that could have positive effects in terms of how my idea of business or my trajectory towards the business I'm trying to develop will change. So all I can say to you is, for people who don't have that support, I think the first thing you can start doing, and I can only say this based on my experiences, is start masterminding. Like I mastermind with an individual, I think 7 different individuals, all from different areas, but all with the right sort of mentality to succeed. And we just talk about the issues we face, any sort of advice that we can offer, or if we're seeking advice, we ask it there and then. We spend about 2-3 hours, sometimes even 4 hours, just like connecting and fusing our brains. You come away feeling inspired. You come away with practical advice. You come away with sometimes people wanting to help you, and you can be quite more effective. Sometimes you can't find 7 other people to meet up with every single month. So maybe the alternative is having an accountability buddy, and that's how I actually started myself. I found someone else. Actually, they found me and said, "Do you want to be an accountability buddy?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" And so we were accountability buddies for about, I would say, 6 months. I fired them, found another one, because I was like,
you fired them after they came to look for you?
Yeah, because like I just realized there was a lot of talk, but they didn't really align to my energies. And I think someone else alluded to that in the chat, actually. Like the energies need to align, and you need to be able to feel and also see that they're about their business as well. So for the past 2 years, I've had this accountability buddy, and it really helps, especially if you do it in a measured way. Like, you know, we track everything. We have the objectives, we have the tasks, what we've actually done, lessons learned, and how we would rate each other out of 10 in terms of our effort. Amazing. And so that was a great way of just really measuring, you know, outputs and success.
So how do you feel when somebody rates you a 1? You put in your best and then they give you a 1?
I just have to deal with it. Like, you know, I think I got to a stage in my life where I had to realize that in order for me to be successful, I need to make sure that I align to my values. And that meant me living a life of authenticity, or at least being as close to authenticity as possible. You know? And so if someone's given me feedback, I can choose to accept it or ignore it. But they're saying it for a reason. So I need to understand what that reason is. And so I just needed to let my guard down and receive that information, because you would imagine, especially if they're your accountability buddy, they're giving you that advice for a reason, because they want you to grow, because it benefits them as well.
I mean, like, it's always hard as well. Like, I mean, you know, because you're such a successful person, in my eyes.
Well, it depends what you mean by success.
Exactly, and I was going to say in my eyes, because I know that you are your number one critic. Because each time you deliver something, even if we applaud you, no matter how much we applaud you, you're like, oh yeah, but I just need to review it and make sure that, like, you're always criticizing your own work. And I think that's such an inspirable or inspiring character trait to have, like to have a willingness to learn even from yourself. But how do you ensure, for example, the people that are in your circle are the right people? I know we spoke about the right vibrations, the right energy that's in alignment with you, but then sometimes the difficulty is people want to compete with you. You know, there's healthy competition and then there's unhealthy competition. So like, how do you navigate that challenge? And then how do you cut people off when the vibrations are like not in the right place?
That's an extremely good question, and I think people need to hear it. So you'll hear me repeat a lot of the same stuff because I'm that person, you know. And so I'm going to come back to values again. And the reason I talk about values so much is because it's your guiding system towards your Northern Star, whatever that means in context and vibration to you as an individual. And so I needed to understand, number one, how do I work out my values? So I worked that out by understanding what infuses me, understanding what excites me, understanding what, you know, really lights me up, and also understanding what I hate. And so that gives me a clear idea of where I need to be, or what environments I need to be in, or who I need to be around. And so if people don't fit those values, and they don't have to fit it exactly, but it needs to be of a certain range. If they don't fit that range, and I can only tell that based on my feelings, then I need to be aggressive with my approach. And I don't need to be rude. I don't need to be like, oh, I'm not talking to you anymore. I just need to tone down the communication, because eventually, if you tone down the communication, you know, people are going to get the message. And if they don't get the message and it's persistent, I will gladly say, I don't think this is going to work. And I have done that before, you know, if I have to. You know, you have to learn to be comfortable with being uncomfortable, because if you go beyond your comfort zone, that's where growth is. And there are some situations where, you know, maybe I've made a mistake, you know, and I just have to deal with that. But at that moment in time, that's what I felt, you know. And normally I give people a strike rule. Like if you do it more than once, I think I give them up to 3 strikes. If you do it more than 2 times, then I'm sorry.
Then
First strike, you're out.
Okay,
you're out completely.
Out.
Yeah, because I like to give chances.
I have a 3-strike rule too, so it's nice to hear that exists in this world. Because I'm definitely that person that gives people like 3 strikes. I'm like, okay, I gave you the first chance, and then this is your second chance, and you're still not learning. What's going on? Cool. So. You know what? They always say that you aspire to be what you see.
Yes, yes.
What you see is what you aspire to be. I am, like, within my career, I've always had the privilege of sitting in a boardroom with decisions, being that person that makes decisions. But each time I look around, I don't necessarily see anybody that looks like me. So I am one of those ladies that you say, leading ladies in male industries. I've worked in banking for a long time. I worked in construction. I work in central government now. I've worked in local government authority, and most times within the boardroom where there's CEOs and COOs and directors, I'm the youngest, the only woman, and the black person in the room. So like, what drives you? And I know you alluded earlier to say that you don't necessarily even speak to your, like, you don't really have a close relationship with your father. So like,
I do. Sorry, I definitely do. Sorry, but he's not. He doesn't live with me. Yes,
he doesn't live with you. Sorry, so your dad doesn't
didn't live with me. Should I say?
So how do you then aspire to, because people are talking about black excellence. People have been mentioning black excellence. Like, how have you navigated yourself to this point where, like, you are an epitome of what people are calling black excellence, when there might not necessarily have been those kind of people around to pave the way for you?
That's a good question. For all I know, I have no idea if people put me in that category of Black excellence or not. I don't really mind.
There's loads of them.
Okay, maybe that is the case, but I'm not looking for that. And so I focus on how can I be the best version of myself as possible. And so with that in mind, I never necessarily had those people to look up to in terms of a Black male and X, Y, and Z. Because even if you look at my family, a lot of them are mixed race anyway.
Wow. Okay.
So, and you know, with that in mind, it's like, what other sort of things did I have to focus on? I only had the TV screen. I only had YouTube. I only had books. I only had audibles. I may have seen the one or two odd Black person within the NHS who was at a high position. And so in my mind, I'm like, okay, these people have clearly, you know, been successful and they focused on what they really wanted to do. I need to just focus on me and do what I need to do in order to get to where I need to get to. And so you have to have this almost childlike mentality where you believe that you're the one. You need to believe you're the one. Because if you don't believe you're the one, then it's never going to work for you. And so it was cultivating that mindset and that belief that I can do whatever I put my mind to. It needs to be unwavering. It needs to be unshakable. It needs to be so like awe-inspiring that even to yourself, you're just like, wow, I can't believe I believe this. You know, I'm even getting goosebumps saying this stuff. And so I trained myself to think that way. I trained myself to really make sure that nothing affected my mindset. And so that came down to the environment, what I read, who I was around, look all the books behind me, you know, like I've read the majority of these books. And so I needed to really sort of like develop that internally in my head.
Yeah. So somebody said, focus on yourself. And I know you have an acronym for focus because I read your book and it's in there. Can you tell everybody what that the acronym for focus is and what it actually means?
Okay, so it's not my own acronym, so I'm not going to pretend that it's mine. So it's follow one course until successful. And I followed that for so many, I still follow it now, but I really sort of focused on those words, follow one course until successful.
Yeah.
And all that really meant is if you're going to write a book, focus on finishing that book. What does that actually mean? If we use me as an example, my first book was, I started writing it on the 25th of January, 2017. I thought I was going to finish it in a month. Yeah, that was silly thinking. But I said, I'm going to write every single day, no matter what. And I'm not going to look back. And if you stick to just doing that one task, what do you have? You don't just have one book, you have many books because you've trained yourself to actually put yourself in a position. And so that to me meant just not getting distracted, funneling in your vision and sticking to what you're going to do long after the feeling had gone.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Like, I wish I had an opportunity to be taking notes like everybody else, but I'm going to have to definitely save this video so I can take my notes. What is the hardest piece of criticism you've received and how did you navigate around it?
I think I still get this. I give away too much information for free. I hear that all the time. Oh, Michael, I even heard it today, you know, you like giving away information for free, you know, like you're this sort of person where you're like, oh yeah, are you free on Monday? Like, let me put you in my calendar and we can sit down, we can talk. And I'm very freely given, you know. I think I get that from my mother because she's like that as well.
Amazing.
Yeah, but you know, I guess obviously if you're trying to develop a business, of course you want to give away information for free. That should be the very nature of you as a personal brand. However, you need to be able to package that information in a way for people who are really willing to make transformations and changes in their life, where they can pay for your services and you can actually help them like shift, you know, unless they want to do it themselves.
Okay.
So yeah.
And what would be like for the people that you've actually helped to shift their mindsets, shift them like in terms of like the people that you mentor and coach, what kind of struggles have you faced as a mentor or as a coach?
I think one of the biggest sort of like issues that I've faced or challenges that I've faced with somebody I've coached is their ability not to see past their limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
And that's a very hard thing to crack. And so it takes time, because as a coach, I have to be mature enough to say, or even identify whether it is right for me to continue coaching them, or whether I need to refer them onto, let's say, counseling, or someone who has a more niche sort of focus within coaching as well. And so that's been really difficult, because I think I can do anything, you know. You are limited. Like, as human beings, we are limited to a degree. And so for the safety and nature of that individual, you just refer them onto somebody else. So that's a big challenge that I've faced in terms of limiting beliefs.
Okay, cool. And so as a Black brand owner, what kind of things, where do you think like Black businesses or Black brands go wrong in the way they operate?
Whew. So yeah, like, I'll be honest with you. I think, and this is not for every Black, I want to make this very clear. It's not for everyone, but for what I've seen, for a lot of them, they focus heavily on the branding and marketing when they haven't even perfected their products or services. They haven't even done the user research behind whether individuals actually want their products and services. You know, and it's more a glamorous lifestyle as opposed to, well, a perceived glamorous lifestyle, as opposed to, do you have a valuable product or service that you can actually deliver on? And again, that's not everyone, because there are many that do deliver these services. But rather than focusing on glamorizing and branding and marketing, focus on really understanding your audience. Like, what are the problems that they're trying to solve? Is there a real demand for what it is that you're actually trying to, you know, develop, you know? And what sort of value do you bring as a business owner or a brand owner in terms of what you're doing? I think that's one thing. I think there's also this issue around maybe even collaboration, so to speak. And we have to find more of an innovative way to be more collaborative from a commercial point of view. Now, obviously, this you could argue this is a collaboration, and this is a form of brand awareness. But from a business point of view, how are we making monies from this, if that makes sense? And so there's an issue maybe of trust. There may be an issue of skills. Maybe there's an issue of understanding the collective fundamentals of what business looks like. So there's all these different things that come into play. So yeah, these are some of the ideas. I could continue, but I think I'll leave it there for now.
I think DJ Principal just raised a good point. He said people don't want to pay though. Like, I remember one time I was like, okay, cool. Like, my consultancy was really picking up, and then trying to balance between consultancy, social entrepreneurship. At that point, I was writing a book and also holding a 9-to-5. It got so much. So then I decided, you know what, like, it's probably time, you know, like, you know, when you feel that confidence like that, I think it's really time for me to jump in and like concentrate on business like full time, because my businesses need me to look after them full time for now. And then I went into it, and then being somebody that loves to make sure that there's like a steady income somewhere, somehow, like, as quickly as I jumped into my business, it was as quickly as I went back into 9-to-5, and I was like, okay, I can freelance, I can hustle on the side, but 9-to-5 pays my bills. So like, how do you make sure, like, how do you get to a point where people are paying? Because I think that's one of the issues, especially with our people. We love things for free, but we don't want to give things for free. So how do we convert like our content into pounds?
That's a very good question. I would say for a lot of people, it's about getting off online and focusing on offline. And number one, having the mentality that you shouldn't rush. Like, there is a lot of power in your background, your expertise, and your knowledge in your workplace, or the experience that you've developed. And sometimes, like for me, I realized that there's power in me having 10 years experience within the NHS and doing all the other stuff in terms of coaching, mentoring, facilitation, all that kind of jazz, that really produces a strong case for me actually coaching people in the outside world. Number two, you need to be in positions where you're actually seen as the expert. So I would, I'd like to think that this is positioning me as some sort of coaching expert, in terms of your audience members. So doing a lot of this stuff, again, gets people thinking, oh, I remember that guy. He was talking about this. He was talking about that, X, Y, and Z. And whilst you're doing that, even with the questions that are coming through, I'm getting an idea of what people want to focus on. And so with that in mind, I can say, okay, cool. Maybe there's a product or service, or maybe even an offering that I can focus on using that language in order for me to attract the right sort of people. And so utilizing all of this intel and this data and everything else, especially on the offline, when you speak to people, you're speaking with purpose, you're speaking with intention. You know you've got things behind you that basically show that you've got these credentials. So I would focus on building that experience, those credentials, making sure if you need to, and this is if you need to, getting a qualification to X, Y, and Z, before you focus on the business, because that is more powerful than just jumping in. Now, obviously, there are some examples where people have just jumped in and it's worked for them. And that's a question of whether they understand the science behind it or whether they were lucky. I can't comment on that. But for the majority of people, it doesn't just work like that for them. So it's about building yourself, building your experiences, building your data intel, getting out there, going to as many events as possible, and not being scared to be proactive, to even say, hey, are you looking for any speakers, or are you looking for someone to be on your podcast? Honestly, all of these things help.
And sometimes, one of the things that I've learned over the years as well is if nobody else is building a table or creating or giving you room for it, like around their table, you create your own. Honestly speaking, that was one of the reasons why I started World Lanterns at the point that I started it, because I had so much love to give, but I just never had an opportunity or a platform that was available for me to show love or to create conversations like this. And I was like, well, I have loads that I want to speak about, so I'm going to put on an event where I'm going to talk about it, but I'm not just going to talk about it. I'm going to bring other people on board that know even more than me to talk about the things that they know, because I think there's so much power in humility and knowing that I don't know everything. I know something, but let's work together and let's create platforms where we can, where it will not just help me, but it will help other people. So I'm going to, for the sake of time, I'm going to ask you 2 more questions, and we're going to open up to the audience.
Cool.
I've literally just lost my trail of thought, so bear with me 1 second.
No worries. Good stalling there.
What was I going to ask you? It's literally just gone. What is this?
I have no idea.
But okay, so I'll come back to my last question. Okay, there we go. In this COVID-19 season, a couple of us are kind of going crazy in the house because some people, personality types, are extremely extroverted. Some people are loving it because they're extremely introverted. Me, I'm kind of in the middle. I love my company, but sometimes I thrive from human interaction, but I also love my own space. So I think I'm doing okay. As your client, what kind of advice would you give us in terms of having a routine and actually keeping motivated?
So that's an interesting question, because as a coach, I wouldn't be giving you advice.
Okay. Well, as a mentor, let's pretend you're my mentor at the moment. As my mentor, what would you say?
I would say it's extremely important to make sure that, number one, you stick to a routine. Okay. So decide exactly when you're going to wake up and when you're looking to go to sleep, because the body likes regularity. That's why we have circadian rhythms and everything else within us to keep us sticking to routine. So that's the first important thing. If you are working from home, then make sure that you, number one, put in the right essential breaks that you need to have, because looking at the screen consistently fries your brain. Also being sort of really familiar with taking regular breaks if need be. And that's quite difficult, because what some people may do is add meetings to your diary, X, Y, and Z. So maybe purposely you need to put things into your diary so that blocks that out, to have that time. Number 3, make sure you have lunch. make sure you eat properly, because sometimes when you're at home, you're just, you know, on the computer, all this kind of stuff, and you're not really, you know, really spending the time to actually eat. So I think I'm on number 4. Make sure you utilize going outside for a walk, okay, or your exercise. Like, that's still something we can do. Make sure you do that, okay? Like, don't not do that at all. And if you're really fearful of doing that, then make sure you're looking at nature of some sorts, because there needs to be that serene feel. Opening the window, go on a balcony, go into the garden, even go into the front porch. Do something where you're taking and breathing in the air. It's very, very important for you to do. Now, obviously, during this whole time, everyone's like, oh my gosh, there's opportunity. You know, we've got all this time. When, for me, I'll be honest with you, I don't feel like I've got all this time. I'm still busy.
I don't know if you saw me rolling my eyes, because I'm like, what time?
Exactly. And so you need to be very clear about, okay, what has actually changed? What hasn't changed? What am I learning from this? And how am I going to capitalize? And when I say capitalize, I'm not talking necessarily financially. I'm talking about how you're going to use this inner strength to build something, learn something, continue with something. Okay. So really think about, what are you looking to capitalize on, and dedicate time to it so you can actually build it, learn it, or try it out. Now, obviously, there's going to be many people who are going to be finishing shows, whether that's Money Heist, Vikings, you know, whatever. I haven't even touched Money Heist. Everyone's talking about it, but I don't have time for that right now. I've got so much to do, you know. And so, yes, spend time doing that stuff, but only give yourself maybe the opportunity to watch 1 show. If you're feeling a bit naughty, maybe 2. But then for the next 2 days, you're focusing on learning or doing something. I did this exercise with one of my coaching clients, and we went through something known as the Eisenhower priority matrix. And many people would have known what this is, but effectively you're ranking your tasks based on what is important and what is urgent. So if you're able to actually do that in an effective way, then you know, okay, cool, I need to spend the majority of my time on the things that are important and urgent, and also focusing on the things that are urgent as well. But, you know, putting in enough time for the important stuff so I can plan effectively and all that kind of stuff. So maybe that is an exercise for people to do. But the most important thing to do is to stick to a routine. The final thing I would add is that, yes, you need to watch, you know, you need to gather some sort of information in terms of what's going on, but don't be so consumed where you're, oh my gosh, the world's gonna end. Like, I've been in a very sort of like sad situation. I've had 2 family members pass away last week, you know, and it's been difficult to deal with, but, you know, I've had to really quite rapidly get myself in a situation where I'm as resilient as possible, but not denying the grieving process as well. And so obviously that's going to be extended due to the fact that we're in this COVID like bubble and climate. And so all I'm saying to you is just understand what your mind can deal with, but routines are important in that sense.
Amazing. Wow, this is so powerful. So on that topic of motivation, a lot of my clients, they always come to me and they're like, Nashe, I've got a new business idea. I want to do X, Y, and Z. Can you help me with the business planning, all of this stuff? Then, like 2 weeks into it, I'm your consultant. Why am I the one having to chase you for your dreams? Like, what is that? So how can people, like, because I see it as a trend that always happens. People always, when the fire starts, it's really burning. Everybody is excited about it. But give it a couple of weeks, like the motivation goes. Like, what piece of advice would you say to business owners or entrepreneurs that are starting something, but then they get to a point where they lack motivation, or somebody that's a fellow author that has started a book and then they've just gotten writer's block? Like, what kind of advice would you give that person?
That's complex. I'll be very honest with you. It's easy for me to say that they never necessarily wanted to do that from the beginning, but that may not be true, you know. And so I guess before you start anything, you need to be able to commit to it, okay? And what I mean is, and I can only use my book as an example. Before I wrote the book, I psyched myself up for like a month. I'm not even joking. Like a proper psyched myself up. And I said, I need to write this book. I need to write this book. I need to write. So I came up with this phrase called commit to a cause. And so commitment is basically discipline in my eyes for a long period of time until you get a result. The cause is based on the fact that I affiliate to it in a way that invigorates my spirit and my soul. I feel like I need to do it. It's that desire to want to fulfill something. So if you have desire and discipline attached together, you have commitment to a cause. And so my advice to those individuals would be, you need to do it no matter what. You can't let your feelings get in the way. We have feelings and we have emotions in order for us in order for our bodies to highlight danger. Okay, that's what it does. But really looking at the situation, the danger really being expressed here is the fact that you don't want to do this. You fear being tired. You fear wanting to have to compromise your TV shows. You fear not being able to eat certain things. And so you need to train your mind, or you need to at least say to yourself, I am going to do this no matter what. Even if I write a line, I'm still going to do it. When you commit to daily practice, what the body naturally starts to do is tell your mind that this is how things should be. I know everyone says, exactly. I know people say it's like 21 or 90 days for you to form a habit. Even forget that saying. Just commit to it daily. You need to have a no matter what it takes attitude. And so when you have that like ingrained, naturally by the law of repetition, you're actually going to teach yourself to condition yourself to actually get stuff done. So at the beginning, it's never nice. It is never, ever nice. And you need to get to that point of what they call conscious competence.
Wow. Conscious competence. Amazing. Amazing. So I think we've got like literally 6 minutes left. If anybody's got a question, please, this is the opportunity for you to ping your questions to Michael, because after this hour he's gonna start charging you, because like we can't be giving things out for free. I'm just saying. So this is your opportunity to write your questions down and then see if we can address them. But this has been so inspirational, and like there's just so much value in these kind of conversations, and I hope everybody that's been tuned in has been gaining something from this. Whilst people might not have another question, maybe I can quickly squeeze it.
Go ahead. I think it's slightly delayed anyway.
So like, what piece of advice do you, somebody has said, what are your top 5 book recommendations? Good question. So I would say the first one is The Laws of Success by Napoleon Hill. Definitely say that. I would say, I need to get my phone. The second one is Chimp Paradox. That's a fantastic book. I would say the third one is, there's a great book called KPI, so Key Person of Influence. That's great for like personal brands and business owners as well. Fourth book, we're getting into that territory now. I would also say there's this great book called Fourth Turning, which is about how generations work and the different types of generations. So even right now, we're known as the hero generation. The fifth one, that's a difficult one. There's so many. Somebody says The Power of Goals by Michael Tabarade. How about that?
We'll leave it at that then. That's a cop-out, but yeah.
Or Understand, Reach and Expand by Michael Tabarade too.
Thank you.
Okay, so there's another question here that says, how many times have you started again where things haven't gone the way you planned? How do you pick yourself up again and keep going?
Oh, that's a great question. So I went, just to give some quick context, I started blogging in 2011 on Tumblr, learned how to use WordPress, got to a stage where I was like, oh, no one cares about personal development. It's about business. So I went down this business coaching consultant route, even though I didn't really understand the principles in terms of coaching, but I understood the business principles online.
Yeah.
And I realized that it wasn't really working for me. And, you know, I tried to set up events X, Y, and Z, and I wasn't really getting the audience that I wanted.
Yeah.
And that really took me down this whole rabbit hole of not doing anything. I didn't want to look at business videos again. I didn't want to read any books. I didn't want to talk to anybody about anything.
Yeah.
And so I had to go, it was almost like a grieving process of just doing what my body felt like it wanted to do, but then realizing I needed to get to a point of actually deciding what is it that I truly wanted to do.
Yeah.
And so they call that in psychology an existential crisis. Okay. You get to a peak where you're like, oh my gosh, this is way too much. I'm doing. And now I'm realizing I need to be in a state of being.
Yeah.
And so that state of being meant that I started to focus on my values. I started to focus on my sense of meaning and purpose. And then I was like, you know what? I'm going to focus on executive and life coaching and really allowing people to live by their own values and live by their own meanings, values, and purpose as well. And so I had to go through that journey. But yes, the failure or frustration was failing with that whole business idea of things for myself.
Okay, the next question, there's some really positive feedback on here, so thank you guys. We're glad that you're enjoying the session. The next question is, you have £10,000 grant to expand your business. What is the best strategy to get the most out of that grant? I mean, you can give it to me and buy Nashe your business consultant, and I can give it to you. Yeah, what would you say is the best thing to do?
That's a good question. I think there's two things I'll probably do. Number one, I would pay someone to teach me what to do.
Yeah.
You know, I kind of assume I know what to do myself. And number two, I would use the rest of that money towards advertising and marketing and building everything as well. Wow. So those would be the two things. Get someone to coach, mentor, train me, and then use that money towards marketing, promotion. Because really, if we think about it, and let's be honest, a lot of people within, whether the community or whatever it is, don't want to spend coins, and that's included as well, you know, to a degree. And so the thing that may change their life is, number one, knowledge, but number two, advertising. You need eyeballs. You need the right targeted people to actually get those conversions. And so sensibly, it's getting someone to show me how to do it, but also exposing my products and services and my brands to the right market as well. And that's through advertising.
Awesome. So DJ Principal, who's the one that asked the question, his name is Nashe. He said that I'm going to be giving you a call later. So if he's got £10,000 to spend, just make sure, Michael, you hook a sister up, introduce his fee and all of that. So there's another question here from AGC Doncaster, which says, how do you deal with fear of starting something you enjoy?
How do you, sorry?
Deal with fear for starting something that you enjoy.
Yeah, no, I understand. And do you know what? Fear can come in so many different ways. Fear of failure, whatever you define failure as, fear of people making fun of you, and all of these different things. And I think the best thing to do is to really understand why you like it. Okay. In coaching, there's something known as affirmative inquiry. And so what you focus on is the positive aspects of it, or why you're drawn to specific things, as opposed to focusing on the negatives. So you have to get into a ritualistic mindset every single day of either writing what you're grateful for, or either writing down reasons why you really want to pursue this thing. Maybe you need to, like I said, you know, earlier on, talk to people about it. You know, sometimes healing comes from expression. You want to talk to friends or family members. Maybe you want to get an accountability buddy so they can actually help you make yourself accountable and accountable to them. Maybe you want to join certain groups and forums. Whatever it is,
sorry, Michael, I'm going to have to cut you because we literally have 55 seconds left. But
no worries.
Before Instagram's going to hate and cut this. I just want to say thank you so much for being on the platform. And I'm pretty sure, based on everybody's feedback, you're going to have to come back and expand on some of these things as well that we started talking about today. Thank you, everybody, for tuning into Nashe's Corner. Next week, we have an amazing lawyer who is a women's rights advocate that's going to be joining us, talking about domestic violence, human rights, just life stress and how to get over it. Please follow Michael at Michael Tabirade. If anybody needs his handle and you've missed out his contact details, contact me and we'll be in touch. But yeah, thank you so much, Michael, and thank you everybody for joining.